Yeah, and welcome to CANDO FM Sports Zone. I'm absolutely delighted this evening that we managed to grab an interview with the RFL's Chief Executive, Ralph Rimmer. Thanks very much, Ralph, for giving up your time and coming on to the Sports Zone. I'm
really pleased to be here. No problem at all.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Ralph, just before we ask the questions, we've just heard today the sad death, really, of Jed Stokes, the ex-Haven and Town head coach. I'm sure you're going to share with me our condolences to all of his family and friends. Jed was a character. Did you know him at all, Ralph?
Yeah, I met Jed a few times. Clearly, he's a guy that had an impact around the Cumbrian region, so he's been around a bit. And I know that Ben played a bit of cricket in his uni days up there as well. So, he really was a character, was Jed. There's no two ways about it. Tough.
Absolutely.
And he wanted to win, that is for certain. So, it's sad news for us all. It's sad news for the region, sad news for his family. And, my thoughts go out to them all.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ralph. And but on the positive side, I think it's absolutely fantastic as well for the rugby league family that Kevin Sinfield did 7 marathons in 7 days and has raised about £2 million for Rob Burrow and his family. I mean, what a fantastic achievement that is, isn't it?
Astonishing, isn't it? And I think you have to give credit you certainly have to give credit to Kevin. That's where it all starts, of course. But once again, the rugby league family rallies round him. And what I mean by the rugby league family is not just the donations, but, the way the BBC wrapped itself around it, the way the press and media wrapped itself around it, it created this kind of tsunami of passion, which we know we've got. And Kevin and Rob really ignited that, and fair play to everybody involved in it. It's our sport's at its best when it's passionate, and that's just another example of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ralph, you've been in position now for about 2.5 years, and who would have thought that this year in particular would have been so challenging in terms of, obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic, and you've had to have been in negotiations with the government, of course, to try and get some funding, which you have been very successful in. So in terms of that funding, one of the questions I had, Ralph, was why would you take a loan rather than a grant? What's the difference?
Well, a simple answer to that is that the grants weren't available and the loans were, but I can tell you that the loans were on incredibly favourable terms. And in the first instance, we were the only sport that managed to achieve that. We've since gone back in to renegotiate. As you'll see, we've had some success there, but also some success in extending the terms and making those conditions even more favourable. So, grants, yes, grants would have been good, but to be fair, we've had success in other areas with grants. We've got a great deal of grant money into community rugby league in amongst this, and we again go in for more on that. We are pushing for the women's game for more grants there as well, and we've got a great deal of support for the World Cup, and the government have really had to stand up to the plate on that one. So I'm certainly not bemoaning the support we've had from government. They've been engaged literally from the first whistle. So it will all go towards making our sport sustainable, which is absolutely what we need it to be.
So in terms of the £16 million that was acquired in May, has that now all been distributed to the rugby league world?
Pretty much, not completely, but the vast majority of it has. And now we're back into the same process for the next 12 million or so, and some grant work for some of those kind of non-professional sides of the sport as well. So plenty of money flowing in. It has to be repaid back in a sustainable environment, and hopefully it all, and I know it has been greatly received by clubs, enables us to navigate ourselves through to 2022. And when I say 2022, I'm not omitting 2021. I've always seen this as 2020, you deal with the crisis, and it has been a crisis. 2021, we stabilise, and we have a fantastic World Cup at the end of it. And 2022 is how we re-emerge. So that's, in my own mind, that's where I've got all the phases and cycles.
Now, one of the quotes that was attributed to yourself, Ralph, was that we have to take a good hard look at ourselves. What did that mean?
Well, I think we do. Not just rugby league, by the way. I would say every sport does. The messages that I get from government, and unsurprisingly, remember they're distributing to us monies that you and I provide for them. They're distributing our taxpayers' monies. And they should absolutely rightly come under a great deal of scrutiny. If they're good enough to distribute 26 million, probably 30 million by the time we're done into this sport, then as a taxpayer, we have a right to know how that money's being used. And every pound has to be used absolutely correctly. We engineered, created a system of return on investment, which we applied to Championship and League One clubs, which basically means these are the important things to the sport, and in crude terms, spectators, viewers, participants, and governance, in crude terms. If you deliver those, then you get a bigger distribution. And that's the way I think it absolutely should be, because every pound has got to be accountable. And I think that should go from the very bottom of community right up to the very top of England and back again, that philosophy.
So did all the clubs involved, did they have to actually apply for the loan, or were they given out automatically? We, as far as the loan were concerned, we were, in the first instance, we calculated the loss of clubs from the sport when it was suspended. We did that based on 2019 accounts. We have an intimate knowledge of all the club accounting systems and what goes in and out. So we could quite objectively lift it out and say, that's what this sport has cost us. That's what this pandemic has cost us. In the second instance, when we spoke with Oliver Dowden, and when I say we, I'm a member of the Big Five Sports, the 5 chief executives of the Big Five Sports. So we went into Oliver together. And we were asked to account for the lost ticket revenue between the 1st of October and the 1st of April. It's a really simple calculation. And again, we could draw that back to 2019 because we know exactly what that amounts to. Then when you get to that point of ring fencing that amount of money, then each club has to apply and demonstrate that it has that need going forward. So it's quite a rigorous process. There's a loan committee which is set up, which consists of the RFL, consists of Sport England, and also DCMS. And it's rigorous, and there's nobody giving money out for free, which everybody should take comfort in. Now, one of the other things, of course, Ralph, that you've had to contend with is the fact that Toronto Wolfpack, which was a significant element of the expansion plan, unfortunately succumbed to COVID and all the ramifications associated with that. There was then a vote, and they were voted that they weren't in a fit state, really, to rejoin Super League. Now, I know that the RFL only had one vote, which is a little bit of a surprise to maybe lay people. But you guys voted them to stay in, and the Super League and the Super League clubs, the majority of them, voted them to be taken out. So how did you personally feel about that?
Well, look, I thought Toronto brought something different to us. I won't necessarily say it was part of the expansion brand to Toronto. Basically, we judge every project we take on at the RFL against our objectives. So in inviting Toronto in, that's zero risk because they covered all their own costs and everybody else's costs as well. That was the one thing. Then we talked to the clubs and we asked them if they were supportive or not, because the project's dead in the water if they're not supportive, and they were all supportive. So that's how they arrived there, and we thought we would tick some of the RFL boxes, such as media cut through. Well, they had huge media cut through, and the viewing figures were large there as well. So they hit some of our objectives and put all that together, and that's how they got in. And they came up through the divisions and won the way and got themselves into Super League, and then you come to the way the governance model is currently sits, and that's absolutely right. There was a vote. The RFL have a seat on the Super League board. We're part of the voting mechanism. We don't have a veto. So that's the way the mechanism works. So, look, I was disappointed in some respects because I did think they bring something different to us, and I had been there 2 or 3 times, and there were 10,000 people standing on the terraces. No matter what the naysayers say, That's an audience that didn't exist previously. However, COVID proved too much for them. We have a situation where they're guaranteed not to have any home games. They have no access at all to the government support that was managed to secure for everybody else, and they got no central distribution from broadcast funds. I think if you put that up against any other club in the competition, they'd be wiped out instantly. So, I don't think their demise in those circumstances was too much of a surprise, and it was very unfortunate. But COVID has taken a few. There's a huge amount of consequences to COVID, and that was certainly one of them.
So why do you think the rugby league community sort of didn't support them then?
Well, it was the Super League clubs. Having spoken to them, they can see lots of the positives, but I think COVID's just created a really uncertain market. We still don't know exactly what all the seasons are going to look like next year. Nobody does. But we're working hard, and I think that's probably just the straw that brought the camels back. It was just too much uncertainty to reinvite them in for 2022. I think that's generally the way it will be viewed.
Now, I closely follow Barrow Raiders, obviously, Ralph, as I'm sure you do yourself, and we were ready to take on Ottawa, and then they've chickened out now. So what happened there? Why did Ottawa pack in? Because of the COVID uncertainty?
Yeah, exactly the same. We couldn't be specific about what the fixture list might look like next year, about whether they had to remain in this country to play or could play over there. And on the back of quite a significant investment so far, that was a big step for them to take completely into the unknown. All of this didn't exist, of course, when Ottawa first invited into the competition, and they went through exactly the same processes. Does this count against the RFL objectives? Yes, it does. Are the rugby league community supportive? Yes, they definitely were. On that basis, we went forward and we agreed a participation agreement. However, then COVID came, so they've taken a step back to reassess the situation, which under the circumstances, although disappointing, I think is completely reasonable.
So do you think Ottawa and possibly New York City are definitely going to come into the British rugby league scene in 2022?
Well, I would be fairly confident that Ottawa will. I have a pile of applications on my desk always from clubs that want to come into the competitions, and some of them are more genuine than others. Some of them have a lot more
speculative.
Some of them are completely bonkers. That's exactly right. I think it's great that we continue to excite people enough to make an application as they do, and some of the ones on my desk would certainly raise an eyebrow. They would, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people I speak to about rugby league and that, Ralph, a lot of them are sort of asking the question, well, why doesn't Glasgow and Dublin get their acts together? We're talking, a half an hour flight or something like that instead of travelling to Canada 6.5, 7 hours.
Well, I think one of the things that we've learned along the way, and I've been involved in the sport an awful long time, I can go right back to Paris Saint-Germain, is you cannot just take a map out and stick a pin in it and say, we'll have a team there. It just doesn't work. What you need is, you need infrastructure. You need probably one or two people or a consortium to stand up to say, we're willing to invest in this. So you know you've got financial security. And then you need the support of the clubs. You need to have all that. So you don't get the opportunity to say, why don't Glasgow have a team? Well, you can, of course, and you can support grassroots development in Glasgow, which we would, but that's got to manifest itself in some way. You can't just put a team where you want it. Unfortunately, you can't.
So I believe that the decision on who's going to replace Toronto is going to be announced on December the 16th. So what role does the RFL have in choosing who goes in Super League?
Well, there's an executive panel, and you'll have seen that I invited Lord Jonathan Kane to sit as chair of that executive panel. Jonathan's background is very impressive. He's a very impressive character. He loves rugby league, which is helpful. But he's a guy that has negotiated over the last 25 years or so with Jerry Adams and Martin McGuinness and Mo Molam and Tony Blair, David Trimble, Ian Paisley, right in the middle of the Good Friday Agreement. His pedigree is pretty high. And that just meant that he would gather all the information from that executive panel around him, which is half the RFL and half Super League. He would ensure the process was robust. There's a framework, a balanced scorecard in place. Every applicant knows what the process is. And then that'll all get drawn together, and with Jonathan right in the middle of it, a decision will be made there, and Jonathan will make the announcement. So it's robust, as you would hope it would be, but I would add, and I know there'll be lots of tension, having been through licensing on a couple of occasions, I know there is. People should keep into perspective, this is an additional place to what was already out there. Promotion and relegation still exists. This is something that's come up that didn't exist before. So there's a degree of opportunism in it. So it's not the end of the world if some applicants don't make it. They will see it, there will be disappointment, of course, but that normal promotion and relegation mechanism still exists.
And obviously one of the knock-on effects of that particular situation, Ralph, is that there's going to be a team from League One going into the Championship. Now, some of my informers have advised me that that decision is going to be announced on Thursday. Is that correct?
There'll be an announcement that will hopefully be around that timescale, certainly.
So there's 4 teams there. There's Barrow, Workington from Cumbria, and of course there's Rochdale and Newcastle Thunder. So, I mean, those applications only went in last week. So what happens between last week and sort of it is Thursday? Is there a panel that looks at against the criteria and it comes up with a majority vote? Is that how it works?
It's exactly the same process as the one that we've just described. There is a balanced scorecard. All the applicants are aware of that scorecard. There's an executive that will sit round and feed the chair of that panel, which is Dean Andrew, who was Air Commodore Dean Andrew. Again, a great lover of the game. Again, has worked with NATO and as you know, worked in war zones all around the world, making the highest level of decisions, feeding into government. I've been very, very careful about the chairs that I've chosen for this. And I needed people that had stature, had pedigree, had competence, had a love of the game, and would ensure that the right club came out of it. And I'm delighted to say I'm not involved in either process before.
Well, I was going to ask you that, Ralph. I was going to say they won't let you in there because hopefully you could put a word in for Barrow, couldn't you?
Yeah, that's probably why they wouldn't let me in. So no, I'm glad to see arm's length from me, and that suits me right down to the ground.
Now, one of the other things that I think is a good news story for the Rugby League, Ralph, is that Super League Grand Final between St Helens and Wigan was, I know there wasn't a plethora of tries or anything like that, but what a game of rugby it was. It was attrition, wasn't it? It was brutal, it was physical, it had everything, didn't it? And if that wasn't the greatest advert for Rugby League, I don't know what is.
What a way to finish the season. Just an extraordinary piece of sporting theatre, and you'll struggle to find something like that anywhere else. It was incredible. It had a pulse which just pulsed for 80 minutes and just left everybody completely and utterly exhausted. Either team could have won. You know, it literally was a bounce of a ball and a blade of grass that separated it. And in the end, that's why we go to sport. You know, we go to sport for uncertainty of outcome. If we all knew what the result was going to be, nobody would turn up. So that created unbelievable excitement and likewise unbelievable disappointment. And again, I come back to how we started this conversation. This sport is about passion, and that created all of it. And when I speak to Sean Wayne, who I do on a regular basis, you know, he believes some of the changes that have come about this season, you know, the 6 again and the no scrums, you know, and that intensity that develops, you know, the ball just does not stop. It's just incredible how much the ball is in play. That's how we're going to create World Cup winners. And I am inclined to agree with him because the intensity is incredible.
And I was just thinking, Ralph, that could be a springboard because it's exposure, isn't it? I mean, I know that there's been a renegotiation of the Sky TV deal, which is absolutely fantastic. I know that BT were also interested. So one of the questions is, well, can't they show championship matches or League One matches or whatever, or even women's rugby league, just to get more exposure? But I read different types of newspapers. But let's take the Daily Mail, for example. Yeah, I mean, I look in there at reading articles, and I look for rugby league, and I can't find it. It's all rugby union centric, a paper like that, and I'm thinking, is anyone from the RFL having a chat with a Daily Mail editor and saying, "Come on, you need to put a bit of rugby league in there"?
Yeah, of course they are. We meet with editors on a regular basis. Some are supportive and some are far less so, and we're not going into the politics of that. We have a fantastic sport. It has some barriers that keeps needing to negotiate, and some of which you pointed out. I think the World Cup gives us another lever in, the biggest lever in, to be honest. And in getting the World Cup away in 21, we'll have a brilliant international window because there's no other big international sporting events in this country in 2021. It'll be right on the end of it, so that's perfect. I do believe it's the winning of a World Cup, or certainly being a World Cup final, but I'll say the winning of a World Cup, that moves you from the back page to the front page of every newspaper. Every newspaper. You can't ignore it. You just cannot ignore it. When women's netball achieves what it does, it's on the front page, and we're just the same. So I think this is an unbelievable opportunity for us. We can't mess it up. Everybody knows exactly what we've got across to get here so far. Producing the season this year has been unbelievable as far as the challenges go behind the scenes. But then producing a World Cup at the end of next year will be another incredible achievement. And you've already seen there's been some fantastic stats around it already, and there's been a huge sponsorship of it. So we've got an exciting 21 ahead of us. I need at least 3 hours off at some point, and then I'll...
Well, obviously, with the COVID and the Toronto Wolfpack situation, the domino effect with teams getting promoted, Ralph, does that not mean that there has to be like a revised business plan and a new vision, a new set of objectives, perhaps? I mean, do you work on that on a regular basis? Is it going to be transparent? Are you going to publish it? What's your vision for the next 5 years, Yeah,
well, yes, we do work on strategies all the time. So this current strategy was actually brought in 2014 with a review in 2018, which we came through. And in January 2019, we set up the Rugby League Reset, which was that review, basically. This cycle, 19 to the end of 21, was due to include broadcast negotiation, which you've just alluded to.
Yep.
Sport England negotiation, which we've just rolled over for 1 year, and also a World Cup. And then the new strategy was to take us from the end of 21 onwards. Now we're bringing all that strategy work forward because of COVID. It's had a big impact on us. We're likely to know, and I don't know it yet, what the outcome of the broadcast negotiation is. That's a Super League negotiation. But when we get that kind of parameter, we'll be able to set out the new strategy going forward. And I do think, there's some big decisions to be made. There's no two ways about it. COVID has reset the country, the world. So rugby league's not immune to that. It'd be really naive to think we're going to go on the way that we are, because last week you had Debenhams disappear, you had Arcadia collapse. These are big things, and rugby league is in amongst all that. So we just have to be, we don't have to be complacent, and change is good. We just have to hit challenges head on. That's it.
Yeah, now we interviewed Steve Neal of Barra Raiders chairman the other week, and I was it's easy to be critical all the time of lots of people, Ralph, but I was very impressed, actually, of the way that he's managed the Raiders with the community work and the fact that they've sustained themselves over the summer with sort of biggest beer garden in Europe and all this sort of thing. And they're in quite a good financial situation, he told us. So if we can't get in the Championship, well, but we'll be in League One. But there's only going to be 10 games, 10 teams, 18 matches. Is that enough to sustain a club like Barrow?
Well, I think there'll be more than that because we were working on the formats which will extend that. Steve Neal and his board are smart people. Steve's a very smart guy. The people of Barrow and surrounding area will be pleased to know that he represents the club with some vigour. He does, yes. And I mean that in a really good way. Really good way. He's strong. He's clear. He's articulate. He's very ambitious for the club. And I think he and the board have done a great job. As you said, they've insulated themselves in a difficult year and they feel strong at the moment.
So we'll just come to the end now, Ralph. I know you're a very busy guy, and as I say, you've got lots of things to deal with in the next few weeks and that. But what's your final thoughts and sayings, really, for the supporters of Barrow Rugby League in this area around Barrow and Ulverston and Furness? What can we look forward to in the world of rugby league?
Well, I think you can look. Well, there's a lot to look forward to. There's the World Cup, and I'll start with that. And I don't think that teams that haven't necessarily got a game are exempt from that. I think there's ways of involving them and involving them in part of the vibrancy and the colour and the excitement of it all. And we're going to talk to Championship and League One clubs about that in January. In addition, Super League will go on and continue to develop what it has done this year, which is fantastic contests. Championship and League One, they've all heard me say this on many occasions anyway. It's the Rugby Football League's job to create rugby league. That's what we should be about. And that's as many games as we can in the right environments as we can and help clubs to create great rugby league experiences as well. We try and do that. And I would hope that there'll be many supporters flooding through the gates of Barrow next year in order that they, get to almost reclaim their love and territory of rugby league, because we've all missed it. I've been completely cold turkey as far as Championship and League One goes. In addition to that, we've produced all the return to play protocols, return to train, return to play for community, and clearly having lived and breathed community rugby league around Barrow and District for a long time up in Cumbria, you're going to see the return of that with some. There will be some restriction on it, of course there will be, but we're going to see it. We're going to be able to touch it. We're going to be back in it again. So, this year, when COVID happened, I said, first of all, there'll be no perfect solutions, which there absolutely hasn't been. Everyone has to accept that landscape. Secondly, I said we would re-emerge and we would relaunch again in our 125th year. We managed to tick all that off. 2020 is out of the way now. It's all about 21 and 22. And, rugby league will be back, will impact you at every level in 21.
Yeah. And the other good thing, the final saying, Ralph, is that Dave Clark's been appointed Ulverston Rugby League's coach.
Has he? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Dave Clark's got the job.
That's fantastic. No, I didn't know that. That's cool. That is cool.
Look, mate, thanks very much for the interview. Thanks for giving up your time. I'm sure the listeners will really enjoy this on our local station, CANDO FM, and best of luck in the few weeks, Ralph. I know you're passionate about rugby league, and we wish you all the best.
Very grateful for your time. Thank you, Tony.
Cheers, Ralph.
Cheers, bye.